The role AI and machine learning play in game development is changing, and Ubisoft is eager to explore the possibilities that evolving tech introduces. Speaking during ICE Summit 2019 today, Yves Jacquier, Ubisoft's executive director of production studio services, explored the future the company sees for in game development, and shared some of its own applications of the technology. Jacquier says that the very nature of machine learning brings uncommon challenges, such as the speed at which the tech changes, the resources, like data, machine learning expertise, and usage, needed to work with machine learning, and unconventional regulations that crop up with emerging technology surrounding things like data ownership and privacy concerns. There's also, with any evolving technology, a gap in interest between the academics and the companies that seek to apply the tech to do their own work. Jacquier illustrated this law in a simple graph during his talk, outlining that the academic world has the most love for new technology, like AI during the theoretical research and development stages, but that love wanes as it approaches the prototyping stage. Developers like Ubisoft, on the other hand, tend to become interested at that prototyping stage and become more enamored with the new technology on through the development of a final product. He says that this leaves a gap, the gap of wasted ideas, that Ubisoft bridges with its lawful research and prototyping space. From crowd AI, unbelievable traffic patterns to machine learning-driven systems that help programmers spot bugs as they submit code. Jacquier says that Ubisoft's work to integrate machine learning into its development process has led to a number of helpful changes across multiple disciplines. For example, he showed off a machine learning-powered system that helps animators craft more organic work cycles with significantly less legwork, and a system that automatically matched lip movements of in-game characters to words being spoken based on a text document transcript, something that he says will someday be possible in real time. The same technologies, he says, have applications outside of game development as well. The animation system, for instance, could be used to diagnose issues that cause limbs by using machine learning to compare a motion capture of a patient with a database of symptoms caused by different afflictions. On the programming side, the AI that Ubisoft implemented last year to detect bugs in code, now called Clever Commit, now has a 70% success rate for predicting that a code submission contains bugs. Jacquier also took the time to lightly announce a partnership between Ubisoft and Mozilla that sees each company dedicate 5 of their experts to work together on new tools and methods to bolster AI development, with the shared objective of building better software. In this DD 2012 talk, Great Areas Marcus Montoya discusses Shadow Cities, the first location-based morph in the world, and some of the key lessons from the early days of novel location-driven video games. Montoya goes over a few points, including using the real world to high-level design made the game inherently unfair, and the difficulty of finding the solutions for game design tactics that were no longer applicable. It was an insightful talk that's definitely still worth watching, so developers should not miss the opportunity to do so now that it's freely available on the official GD YouTube channel. In addition to this presentation, THEGDC Vault and its accompanying YouTube channel offers numerous other free videos, audio recordings, and slides from many of the recent game developers conference events, and the service offers even more members-only content for DD Vault subscribers. Those who purchased all access passes to recent events, like DD Vertical already have full access to the Vault, and interested parties can apply for the individual subscription via the Vault subscription page. Group subscriptions are also available. Game-related schools and development studios who sign up for the Vault Studio subscriptions can receive access for their entire office or company by contacting staff via the HGDC Vault Group subscription page. Finally, current subscribers with access issues can contact the Vault technical support. Gamasutra and DD are sibling organizations under parent company Informa. Procedural and random generation are the cornerstones of roguelike design, and we have seen many games push these elements further than they have ever been. This past year with Dead Cells, and games like The Binding of Isaac, Spelunky, and of course, Dwarf Fortress, all provide replayability thanks to those elements. One game design trap I see is developers trying to build a Zelda roguelike experience, and while this may sound like the next evolution of procedural design, it just does not work from a game design perspective. As always, let's quickly define the difference between procedural and randomly generated content. Randomized content refers to set elements that are shuffled around in a level. Enemy positions in Dead Cells are what treasures appear in The Binding of Isaac are examples of this. Procedural design is when the game creates something from scratch, either before or during the running of the game. Route generation in Unknown or found level design in Spelunky are examples of this. Roguelikes typically feature both kinds of generation to define the experience, and it's important to understand how much they impact the gameplay. Not all random or procedurally generated elements are equal in the eyes of the player and their impact on the game space. We have spoken about how just because your game has random or even procedural elements in it does not make it replayable. Many titles that make use of either form will still adhere to a specific progression curve. Survival games are a huge example of this. No matter how much the environment is generated, the player still has to gather resources in a specific order. See Minecraft as an example. Without having a better term to use, we can say that there are hard and soft elements that can be randomized, or procedurally created in a game. A soft element is something that does not impact the gameplay or progression loop of a title, where enemies spawn, basic environments, biome positions. A hard element does impact the player's ability to play the game, and change what they can and cannot do at one time. What upgrades spawn, new items, biome types, enemy types, new resources, etc. The important factor is that what the player is doing in the game must be affected in order for playthroughs to feel different to them. This is why root-in-off design works so well, as adding a piece of gear changes the player's build. Normally, just changing the map around does not lead to different experiences, as the player is still doing the same thing. The reason why Spelunky holds up so well is that even though the core gameplay does not change, by giving the player more levels to go through, it keeps creating different tests of the player's ability, and that takes me to this idea of a Zelda roguelike, and the inherent problems with it. The Legend of Zelda franchise is considered to be one of the best action-adventure series in the industry. Similar to the Souls franchise, every aspect of Zelda is hard-coded to push and guide the player through to the very end. Even Breath of the Wild being the most open-ended take on Zelda still introduced progression points in the form of the Guardians, the Master Sword, etc. Being able to take that handcrafted design and progression and put it in a procedurally designed world sounds like a holy grail form of gameplay. Unfortunately, there are several design flaws with this concept. When we look at the Zelda gameplay loop, the player is essentially doing two things: exploring to find points of interest, engines, items, etc., and performing the task of set point of interest. The latter is more interesting and more important compared to the former. The world of a Zelda game is always inherently designed to force progression. This simply means that the environmental design will guide the player to what they need to do. It's the same concept as what we'll see in Souls-on titles, and how placing harder enemies in an area creates a metaphorical roadblock to tell the player to come back later. By trying to randomize the world ends up making things less interesting and more frustrating. Because the world is always going to be different, it means that from a design standpoint, you have to make the environmental design less complicated in order to accommodate the shuffled nature.